What are the top 5 needs for the Packers in the 2026 NFL Draft? I don't know. Probably more draft picks. Grossi Posse Packer Nation. Welcome to an episode of Packcast, a podcast where you don't have to be Packers fan, but it sure does help. I'm your host, Tom. Packers won't need anybody when they sign me to be wide receiver 1. How long do you think I can get away with this, huh? Calling myself wide receiver 1. I'm going to be 36 years old in September. I ran a 40, and yes, it was 2 weeks removed from COVID, but it was like 6 seconds, and then I ran it in jeans the year later, and it was just under 6 seconds. Maybe I'm not a wide receiver 1. Maybe I just use that to hide my lack of athletic ability and pretend to be something I'm not. What do the Packers need? No. What does Tom need? Acceptance. Grossi, and today we are going to be talking about the Packers draft needs heading into the 2026 NFL Draft. And the Packers, listen, they need a couple of things. We did a video about post-free agency, what the Packers team was looking like, and I mentioned that some of the things that they need is depth at a bunch of these pieces, whether it's defensive line, whether it's CBs, though they also need some corners there, offensive line, and I feel like the draft is a perfect opportunity for them to do so. However, they are going to be limited on what they can do. The Packers only have 7 picks overall. They're going to get a whole bunch of comp picks for 2027, them and a whole bunch of other teams, and so it feels like a whole lot of teams are waiting for 2027. But as of right now, they only have 7 picks overall, including 2 7th-round picks and no first-round pick because, of course, they traded for Micah Parsons. And when Goody was asked about it, how much flexibility they have in the draft, he said it's likely that he is not going to be trading up into the first round. And that makes sense, as their first pick is number 52 overall. Because they did make the playoffs, they are going to be picking near the end of the round. So it feels like the Packers are not going to be making any insane moves during the draft. And so what this episode is going to cover are the 5 positions that I think the Packers need to focus on the most. And so starting off with number 5, I'm breaking my own rule already because it's going to be 2 positions. It's going to be quarterback and running back. And before you clip it, it's backup quarterback and also backup running back as well. Let's talk about the quarterback position first. So, of course, we have Jordan Love. Jordan Love had a really nice season last year. I have all the confidence in the world in Jordan Love for this upcoming year. I think he's going to have an excellent season. However, the Packers do need a backup quarterback, and they need to figure out what they're going to do for the long-term future. As of right now, the Packers have 2 backup quarterbacks. They have Kyle McCord, and if anyone remembers, they also have Desmond Ridder. They signed Desmond Ridder back in December to a 1-year deal. And I do think that Ridder could be the guy moving forward, and depending on how he does in camp, maybe he could be the long-term solution as a backup quarterback. Of course, we've seen him be a starter in the NFL, and while it definitely wasn't great, at least he's a little bit of a veteran presence that the Packers can have back there. However, when you had Malik Willis for the first time in a long time in Green Bay, you had that reassurance of, oh, this guy can come in and not only play well, he can win you football games when Jordan Love gets injured. And I don't have that same level of confidence in Desmond Ridder. And so I feel like the Packers do need to address this. Whether it's going to be an acquisition of yet another veteran that, I don't know, has a little bit more mileage and success under his belt, a Kirk Cousins, if you will, if he's willing to play as a backup and for backup money, or they're going to have to spend some draft capital. And I don't know if they're going to be doing that in this draft. They might decide to rock with Ridder for the 1 year and make this a 2027 problem, like I said, when they have all of these comp picks, but it's definitely something to be aware of. And the other position that I mentioned was running back. And running back is an interesting one. Josh Jacobs, when he is healthy, he's a good running back. While he didn't have the same level of success last year as he did the season before, I still believe in a healthy Josh Jacobs. But as of right now, there is just a whole lot of unknowns, and it is possible that the Packers are going to be set at running back. They did lose Emmanuel Wilson to the Seahawks, but they did re-sign Chris Brooks. But the big question mark is Marshawn Lloyd. Marshawn Lloyd, who has rarely seen the field, the Packers spent a pretty decent draft pick on him. We are just waiting to see if he can play. And right now, under his rookie deal, it makes sense just to keep him under contract, and hopefully he's going to be healthy this upcoming camp, and then we're going to actually be able to get a good look at him during preseason. And as I mentioned, Marshawn Lloyd could solve this problem. This might not be an issue at all and not be a draft need, but I imagine the Packers are preparing for the worst, especially if Marshawn Lloyd does not get healthy. And as I mentioned, Chris Brooks is fine, but we didn't see him a whole lot last year. You saw Emmanuel Wilson in that backup running back spot. And so because of that, I do think backup quarterback and running back are positions of need. I do think that they can be solved, whether it's Desmond Ridder and being that guy just for 1 year and they can wait to the 2027 draft. And like I mentioned for running back, if Marshawn Lloyd is the answer and he comes out and he just plays insanely well, then this issue is not even an issue and it's completely solved. So that's why I feel like they shared a spot. I know it's kind of cheating, but yeah, that's your number 5. So number 4, you got the good old edge rushing position. Yeah, the Packers, they need some defensive ends. They need some folks to get after the quarterback. Now, let's get this out of the way. The Packers, with their starting rotation, they can be just fine. Of course, they're going to have Micah Parsons back, who, yeah, he's a pretty good player. And so there's no worries there, though he is coming off of injury, so it might just take a little while for us to see Micah Parsons back on the field. And as I mentioned in the free agency video, Lucas Van Ness had his best season yet of his career. It has taken him a while to develop. He came out of college and had all this athletic ability, but he just needed to get better with the technique, and you saw some of that last year. When he was on the field, he played pretty damn well. On top of that, Micah Parsons has sung his praises, and so I actually do have a little bit of confidence in LVN after seeing what he was able to put on tape last year. However, this is a position where depth is sorely needed. Of course, the Packers traded away Rashawn Gary, Kingsley Enagbari's no longer on that line, and so who they're left with right now are guys like Barron Sorrell, who I would love for him to get more opportunities, and they re-signed Brenton Cox Jr. But as I mentioned, if Micah Parsons takes a little bit to get on the field, I'm a little bit nervous about what this group of pass rushers can do against opposing QBs. And so I think that edge rusher, while it's not an, oh man, they need one right this second, because like I said, when everybody's healthy, they'll be fine. It's when everyone's not healthy and there are more injuries, because there's going to be injuries in the NFL. That's where my concern lies. And so I wouldn't be surprised if the Packers take a swing on a pass rusher. I don't know if that's going to be with their first pick in the second round. I don't think it should be, because I think the priority could be utilized elsewhere on the defense. But as of right now, I can see them spending a day 3 pick on an edge rusher, and who knows, maybe it's going to be a 7th round pick. But yeah, the Packers, they need some depth at this position. I think they'll eventually go get somebody. Number 3, you got the good old offensive line. And listen, with Brian Gutekunst as your GM, it feels like offensive line is always going to be targeted in the draft. And even in free agency. You look at last year with Aaron Banks, and that unfortunately has not aged well. However, there is a lot of hope that he will have a better season this year. Hopefully he's going to be fully healthy. But the offensive line position feels like it just needs a ton of depth, because their starting rotation, good. When Zach Tom is healthy, I feel pretty damn good about it. But when you see injuries like you did see last year, that's when things start to fall apart real quickly. Because if you look at what the Packers did in free agency, re-signing Sean Ryan was a big deal, because he is likely going to be our center after filling in for Elton Jenkins, who got hurt last year. And I think he's going to do just fine. I don't really have an issue with that. But as I mentioned, Aaron Banks is a big unknown. Jordan Morgan, I think he should have a better year at left tackle. We allowed Rasheed Walker to walk away. He signed a 1-year deal for $10 million with the Panthers, so not any big time money, but he didn't play too well. And you look at the right side of the field, you have Anthony Belton and then Zach Tom, who I mentioned is probably our best offensive lineman right now. But behind that, that's where things get a little rough. They have Darian Kennard, who they just re-signed. They have Barnhart. They have Monk. They have Travis Glover. They have Brant Banks. And some of these names I'm not even that familiar with, and I follow the Packers pretty damn closely. Like, I know who Kennard and Jacob Monk are, but after that, yeah, it gets a little bit dicey. And I feel like there are just not proven depth here at some of the most important positions in football, and that is protecting Jordan Love. And so I wouldn't be surprised whatsoever if the Packers do spend some draft capital this year on offensive line. Like I said, they are a bit limited on what they can do with only 7 picks, but it's Goody. You usually draft an O-lineman. They did it last year. Wouldn't be surprised they do it again. Number 2, you got defensive linemen. Oh, the good old DL. Yeah, the Packers, they need some depth here. And similar to the offensive line, I think the starting crew can be good, but I worry about depth, and I also want somebody to be proven like Devontae Wyatt is. Right now, they have Devontae Wyatt, they have Nazir Stackhouse on the line, they have Carl Brooks, and of course, they just signed Javon Hargrave. But as I mentioned in the free agency video, I'm a little weary about Javon Hargrave. He's getting older, he's dealt with injuries, and on top of that, his best football was 4 years ago. Yes, he's coming back with Jonathan Gannon, but there is a reason that the Minnesota Vikings cut him after just 1 year after paying him a whole bunch of money, and that makes me a little bit nervous. And I feel like for the Packers, the defensive line has been an issue for a while. Even when they had Kenny Clark, it was like, all right, we need to find someone next to Kenny Clark. And now we just need to do the same thing for Devontae Wyatt. And when Devontae Wyatt's on the field, that defensive line is completely different. And I'm hoping that Hargrave is able to step it up. And I do hope that he's the signing the Packers think he can be. But it just feels like we need some more proven depth on the defensive line. And I would not be surprised whatsoever if this is the Packers' first pick at 52. Because while it's really nice that we got a guy like Micah Parsons and even LVN on the sides, it would be really nice if we get some interior pressure and also help stop the run. Somebody else besides just Devontae Wyatt. And if they do that, I think the defense will be in a much better spot. So yeah, they need some defensive linemen. And then finally, my number one need for the Packers is frackin' corners. Yeah, they need some CBs. Bad. Now, just like DL, they did address this in free agency and getting Benjamin St-Juste, and I'm hoping that coming off his best year with the Chargers, he's able to replicate that. He's a big-bodied corner. So yeah, there's some potential there. But the Packers went out in free agency last year to get Nate Hobbs. There was potential there, but unfortunately injuries got in the way of that, and ultimately he was cut. But as of right now for the Packers, they're starting corners, Keyshawn Nixon, Carrington Valentine, you have Taron Herring, you have Bo Melton who is coming back, you have Kamal Haddon who's coming back, and Shamar Bartholomew.
Who are you? I'm the best man. What's your name? Barth. Your full name? Bartholomew.
Yeah, not really big names. And when it comes to guys like Carrington Valentine, yeah, there's times where his coverage is really, really good. His tackling is not. Keyshawn Nixon can be hit or miss. And it feels like the Packers just really need to invest in this position. I compare it to where we were at the safety unit a few years ago, and Goody completely and totally revamped it. They went out and traded for Xavier McKinney, a guy in his prime who has made that safety unit significantly better. And he also spent some premium draft capital bringing in Javon Bullard. And it feels like this is what the Packers need to do here. And when you look at the somewhat recent history of corners in Green Bay, of course, you look at that Super Bowl winning team, which we're going all the way back to 2011, and that secondary was a whole bunch of ball hawks. You have guys like Charles Woodson, who of course were incredible. You have guys like Nick Collins in that secondary. And it just feels like after those guys left, they kept trying to get better and better in the secondary, and they just kept whiffing on the draft picks. Everyone remembers the draft where they went Rollins and Randall first and second, and neither of those guys worked out. They drafted guys like Josh Jackson with the second round pick. He did not work out. And of course, Jair Alexander, he was excellent, but they needed to get some other corners besides him. And it feels like now they're missing that one guy. And so just like DL, I would not be surprised if the 52nd overall pick is spent on a corner. While it would have been nice for them to address this further in free agency, the one saving grace is if the Packers pass rush is really damn good, that is going to make up for whatever the secondary is doing. However, if the pass rush can't get home, that's where they can be torn apart. And so heading into this draft, I think corner is a desperate need. I thought last year they needed corners and they only drafted Micah Robinson in the 7th round, and he's over in Tennessee now. And so yeah, I mean, they've converted Bo Melton from a wide receiver to a corner. That's how bad we need corners. I hope they go and spend a day 2 pick on a corner so I can stop complaining about this. But yeah, that is my number one need for the Green Bay Packers this year. And so just to recap, at number 5, you have backup quarterback and running back. At number 4, you got edge rusher. At number 3, you got offensive line. Number 2, defensive line. And number 1, corner. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. What positions do you think the Packers need to target for this upcoming draft? Let me know. You know, find me at TomGrossiComedy.com. A big shout and thank you to all the Patreon and YouTube members for supporting this channel. And thank you so much for watching. I'm Tom Grossi. And as always, go Pack Go.